Hi everybody, Laura here. Thank you so much for joining me today. I have 4 stamped holiday projects featuring this Festive Triangle stamp set. Just came out in the July release with Altenew, and today is a fun blog hop that I am joining. For all the details for the blog hop, check out my blog. There'll be a link in my description box, but let's take a look at this Festive Triangles. There is an insert in the stamp packaging that is so fun with a lot of inspiration, great color inspiration, and definitely kick-started my mojo. And once my mojo got it going, well, as you could see in the thumbnail picture, I created 4 stamped holiday cards. And so we're just going to buckle in. We're going to buckle in, and I'm going to show you how I created them. First one is the peace. So this is, these large letters just stole my heart. I'm going to draw a pencil line just so that it gives me a nice line to make sure that my letters are stamped straight. And also I find the center point because there are 5 letters in the word peace. And so I'm going to find the middle letter or the middle point on the card. You can see here, I'll show this closer. So I drew a line for my base and then the middle line going up, and that's where I'm going to center my A, since that's the middle letter. And all of these letters are pretty much the same size width, so to speak. So I decided just to go ahead and center the A and then work my way outward to try to center this word peace on this. This is an A2 card base, 4 1/4 high by 5 1/2 inches wide. And then I'm going to erase as I go. I like to erase before I stamp. Anywho, here are my colors: Jade, Grassfield, Pool, Ride the Wave, and Blue Horizon. These are all Altenew fresh dye inks. I'll have everything linked in my description box, also on my blog. But I love these color tones. In the insert, there is a piece card that is rainbow, and you know, I tried it out. Listen, I stamped a few of these. It took me a few tries. There's a bit of a learning curve to getting your letters straight and centered. But I show you my little tricks here, how I drew the line and centered the A. Those little things will definitely help you to have success if you want to do this type of layout. Now I'm just eyeballing it, the E and the C on either side of the A. But back to my color choices, the reason I did like greens and blues is because I felt like it was peaceful. I tried a rainbow one and I loved it because you know I love rainbow, but it didn't feel like it was evoking peace. And since, you know, that is the sentiment, although I am not opposed to a rainbow stamped piece, but you could really use whatever colors you want to use for this. I will say, if you're going to overlap a little bit here like I am, which you kind of have to do if you want to fit it on an A2 size card. Unless you want to make a bigger card, then you'd have plenty of room. The C, in particular, needs to be a darker shade than the A and the E that it overlaps. And I'll talk more about it here in a minute, but there is a little, I learned this as my trial and error, you know, throughout the mistakes. One time I stamped the C and it was lighter. And so then when I went to do the E on the end, it kind of covered up those little, what do you call them, serifs? The little swoops on the end of the C. And if your E covers that up, you can't, it just kind of messes up the letter C. So if you're going to do different colors, make sure the C is darker than that last E. Just a little trick of the trade. Okay, now we're on to the P, and that one I did Jade. So a lighter green, a darker E, a lighter A, a darker C, and then I'll end with the final E, which is going to be a lighter blue. So sometimes I have to stamp the letter twice, just depending on how the ink reacted. Sometimes I get a splotchy result, or maybe I didn't ink it up well. And then other times I only ink it up once. So it just really depends on the, you know, the impression I got. So here you have Peace. I'm happy how it turned out. I'm going to stamp a little sub sentiment. There are several in this Festive Triangle stamp set. I was originally just going to stamp it right on the bottom of the card with black ink, keep it simple, but then I don't know, I get these crazy ideas to do something fun, so I trimmed little strips of light gray cardstock, and I'm stamping the sub-sentiment with this silver lining ink. So it's kind of a gray sentiment stamped on gray. It's very light and subtle, but it's definitely dark enough to read. I didn't want anything that was really competing with the layout. Also, in my mind, I'm kind of sticking to the peaceful vibe. So a little gray. These are 1 inch by 5.5 inches. And I put a little bit of foam tape, top and bottom. Bada boom, bada bing. Love how it turned out, sending you peace and happiness. We are moving on to the second card, another one inspired by a layout in the insert. So I'm going to start with these 3 solid triangles. They have, you know, I love geometric shapes. When I saw those solid triangles, I was like, sign me up. I love that stamp set because you really could use these triangles even when they're not at Christmas time. I could make some fun geometric patterns with these triangles, but I'm just going to stamp just kind of staggered and alternating the small, medium, large size. I'll have the colors inked. I always show the cap so you know exactly what color I used. Again, all Altenew, fresh dye inks. And then here, you really can't go wrong because you just kind of overlap and alternate sizes. Yeah, this one here is what I call a subtle pastel Christmas rainbow. That's what I'm calling it. So you got the light pink, the red, the orange. Here we're going to do a bright yellow and then end it with a green. And it's a very ultra simple card. Great one if you want to mass produce, make a lot of cards. It's a 1-layer wonder, so super easy to mail. Love that for the holidays if you're wanting to mail a bunch of cards. And so this is a white card base, 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches, and I stamped 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 triangles. Here we have jade to round it out with the green. So you've got the kind of pinks, reds through the spectrum, ending it with green. And that's why I call it the Christmas rainbow. And then a very simple sentiment up in the top. And I'm going to use that gray again. Maybe could have gone black, but I like the silver lining. It's a little alternative, something different. It's very subtle. But if you want something bolder, definitely stamp it in black. And then I decided for some embellishment, because this card is so clean and simple, a few enamel dots. And I just pulled out of my stash trying to find enamel dots that sort of match the colors. Tone on tone. Love how this looks. Very clean and simple. There's card 1 and card 2. The next day, I woke up and I thought, I just got to do a couple more with this set. I'm just itching to try a couple more ideas. So this card here is another one inspired by the insert where you stamp the solid triangles. This time I turned it to a landscape, landscape orientated card. So you could fit more triangles. I believe I did I do 7? I think I did 7 triangles and just alternated the size, alternated the heights, you know, just staggering them. Again, this one's going to be another rainbow, but it's a little bit bolder. And then what I do is I take some of the patterned triangles that are in the stamp set and I overlay some of these solids. Not all of them, just a few of them for some patterned Christmas trees. So you start with a base of rows of solid trees and then you can, you know, lay on the patterns if you choose. I'm loving a rainbow row of trees. I think I do one every holiday season and I never get tired of it. And it's always a little weird making holiday cards in July. It's hard to get into the Christmas spirit. A lot of times when I start out in July, I'm making very summery Christmas cards. And it takes a while to get into the season, you know, like just, but the market is the way it is. So these are the times when the stamps come out. And so you got to start making them and getting in the holiday spirit. Wisteria, a nice purple ink here, rounding it out with that smaller triangle. Now, you could stop right here, but here's where I start bringing in the patterns. So there are different patterns in the Festive Triangles, and I'm just kind of doing this tone on tone. So if I stamp that with blush ink, I stamp the pattern with blush ink. Unless it's not going to show up, like here. The yellow, I knew it wasn't going to show up because it's such a light yellow. Then I pulled out Warm Sunshine. So that one I did go a little bit darker shade. It just depends, you know. So this one adds these kind of, ooh, I love how that looks. Okay, loving how this is going. Now here's one for this middle-sized triangle, and that one I stamped with pool. And so this is pool on pool, but it gives you that pattern without, you know, introducing another color. And then here I'll do one more on the Wisteria, and this is going to make it striped. And I think I'm going to call it a day because I don't want to add too much. You never know. You know what I mean? You never know if you've gone overboard. And then I decided just to stamp a big old black sentiment right across the middle. And I love how it turned out. I'm going to add another little sub sentiment underneath that just because I felt like it. And then I thought about adding some clear sequins, but I decided just to hold her steady. This might be my favorite card. This might be it, but then this last one, the last one is when I really took chances. This was inspired by my daughter Alex, who's also a great and very talented graphic designer. She was like, what if you staggered the word peace going down the card, like P-E-A, you know, and then on the last letter add a tree. And I'm like, I'll give it a try. I will give it a try because you never know till you know. So these are the same colors. The inks were already out on my desk, and I wasn't going to, you know, use any more energy in that department. By the way, I have one of those carousels, those ink carousels that hold all the inks for the Altenew. And I have all my Altenew inks in the carousel, but none of them are labeled. And so it's driving me bonkers trying to know what color I'm grabbing. I need to get them labeled, but that's just something I don't want to do. You know what I mean? But it's something that needs to be done. Okay, here we are. See how I'm staggering the P-E-A-C, and then here we're going to end on E. I strategically stamped the E in blue. That way I could add a tree and stamp it green. See, I was thinking I'm going to do a polka dot tree with jade. Now this is a fun layout. I got to give the credit to Alex. She had the eye, she had the vision. Love how this turned out. And then I felt like it needed another tree. It just like needed something more. So I did one more here, and I'm going to do dewdrops, a very, very light kind of aqua blue. And then because I had them out and I'm on a roll, I'm going to stamp another sub-sentiment and then add a few enamel dots. So I did a few here and there in light colors, and I really do love how this one turned out. So I'll show you all four, and I'd love to know which one is your favorite. I know it's hard to pick, but I already know which one's my favorite. So you've got this staggered piece, you got the straight across piece, you got the pastel Christmas rainbow, and then you got the pattern tree rainbow here. So which one's your favorite? Okay, here's where I started. You can see the progression. Started straight, spiced it up, and then the next day got more energy. I regrouped. I can feel the joy as I feel like I can feel the joy come back to my soul as I progressed. Make sure and check out the July release with Altenew, and check out this Festive Triangles stamp set. I'm not saying you need it, but you might need it. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time.